So the question when we come down to rights is who can enforce rights. Women can't enforce their own rights. Men have to enforce women's rights. So there can never be real equality. There can never be real
Literally,
egalitarianism.
what the
Today we're diving into a conversation from the Whatever podcast where Andrew Wilson, one of the sharpest minds when it comes to unpacking modern societal issues, absolutely breaks down the myths of feminism in a clear, unapologetic way. Now, whether you agree or not, what Andrew Wilson brings to the table here is not just opinion, it's logic, history, and an understanding of power dynamics that a lot of people just aren't ready for. I'll be pausing at key moments to highlight exactly why Andrew's perspective deserves more respect and, frankly, more airtime. Let's get into this debate with Andrew Wilson.
Feminism to me, and feminism broadly, is the pushing of an egalitarian society based around the equality of men and women.
Is that the most generous definition that you give it?
That's the most generous one I could possibly give.
So you don't you don't think that, I'm assuming you don't think that men and women are equal, correct?
No.
Okay. Which is okay.
No, I don't. It's okay. I don't think that egalitarianism is true. I don't think that equality is real. I don't think any of those things are true.
This is where Andrew Wilson sets the tone. Most people flinch the moment someone says they don't believe in equality. But what he's really saying is that equality in its purest form doesn't exist in the real world. And that's not controversial when you think about it. It's biological, it's historical, it's structural. Andrew Wilson isn't dismissing fairness. He's just calling out the lie that men and women are the same. That's a huge distinction.
I don't think
Do you think
so
equality should be real?
No.
Who do you think is
I don't even think it's possible. You want me to tell you how? Farah knows. Farah knows what I'm about to say, but I can tell you how. I can tell you how men and women can't be equal. You want me to tell you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you are to look at force in society, who would you say has the monopoly on force, men or women?
Men on brute men.
The monopoly. I'm just talking about the monopoly.
They're the stronger ones.
I feel like things are set up for men, but
Can you indicate a time in history ever, in the history of all of mankind, where men didn't have the monopoly on force?
This is one of the strongest parts of what Andrew Wilson is laying out. The idea that rights mean nothing without the force to enforce them. You can write as many laws as you want, but at the end of the day, it's physical power that upholds those laws. And Andrew Wilson drives this home in a way that most people don't want to admit, because it completely dismantles the fantasy that you can legislate your way into utopia without acknowledging who enforces the law.
On force, as in like physical force, though, correct? Always. They're
physical
always stronger
force.
than
Yeah.
us.
oh, then yeah.
That's the biology.
They have the monopoly on physical force. So the question when we come down to rights is who can enforce rights. Women can't enforce their own rights. Men have to enforce women's rights. So there can never be real equality. There can never be real
This is
egalitarianism.
what the fuck? I just want to say men are a little bit more that is like so violent in nature.
What the
Even what you just said, like,
Sorry.
every society, of course, you need force, but the fact that you feel like because you're stronger than someone, or you can overpower them, you're more entitled to some sort of
hang on,
thing.
listen, so that you get it real quick. Hang on, just hear me out.
Yeah.
Inside of your society,
Okay.
you have rights, right? Those rights need to be enforced, right? So somebody doesn't violate them, right? Who's the enforcement
But
arm?
women's
Usually
rights were
physically.
mostly
It
created,
is
though,
usually physically.
in response to
What do you do
men.
with criminals?
I mean, you put them in jail, but
And
like,
who does that?
There's never been a female officer ever.
I'm not saying there hasn't been, but who does that? Who puts them in jail? And then who guards them while they're in jail?
I mean,
Men.
I don't want to say that because I know women security guards that are
but
fucking rappers in jail.
You're speaking always to the exception. You always look to the outlier. It's not that there can't be some women who are on par with some men. It's that as a monolith, men are the grantors of force, the grantors of rights, and here's how. Whenever you need criminals dealt with in society. It's men who are going to be dealing with the criminals. They're going to be putting them in the jails. They're going to be enforcing your laws. They're going to be protecting you while you sleep through the military and through the
I don't
force
disagree.
there.
But have we ever given women the opportunity
Yes.
to
See,
be in
here's
that
the amazing
place?
part. The amazing part is right now they have all that opportunity and they still can't do it. Meaning,
I don't think they do.
Men inside, yes, they do. Where do women have less opportunity to become the enforcement arm than men in society right now? Tell me.
The
You
workplace.
just said they have a monopoly on force. I don't disagree.
Well, then
I think
I'm
men are
asking-
protectors, and they like. If I have a husband, he's probably bigger than me. If someone comes to try to fight me, I'm not going to be like, "Oh, hold on, I got this." I'm going to expect my man to handle it.
But that's not my question.
So,
My question is, can women be police officers?
Yes.
Can they be in the
Yes.
military?
Yes.
Okay, can they be prison guards?
Yes,
Yeah.
but can
Okay,
they
so
do
do they
all the
ever
same
have
things?
less opportunity
Yes.
to be in the enforcement arm?
Because there's people
Yes.
in the that employ them that hold up
That's
that
why
patriarchy.
it's called a police
No,
man.
what happens instead is this.
Because
is
they were
that
only men in the
inside of the
beginning.
military and inside the police force and inside all these different enforcement arms, when you include women, you lower the standard. You lower the standard in order to bring women in.
This one is going to sting for a lot of people. But again, Andrew Wilson is talking institutional truth, not emotional comfort. You can't have equality of outcome without lowering the bar. In enforcement roles, police, military, prison systems, standards matter. And Andrew Wilson is simply pointing out what happens when ideology starts messing with those standards.
Meaning the female standards in the military.
Physically?
Yes, physically. So
but
the
you
standard.
need nurses in the military. You need women.
You don't need
They're not
them,
helping us, Your Honor.
but they are there.
You don't need a nurse in the. You don't need.
You don't need
doctors
female
in the military.
nurses. You could have male nurses.
I'm just going on like more of the traditional values of like.
Yeah, what I'm
almost
just
like-
talking about an equalization of force. Men have an overwhelming amount of power and force, and so women can't actually enforce their rights against men, whereas men can change the conditions almost any time they want based on their will because they have the monopoly of force.
You don't think that's because that's how it's been set up in time and history for them?
If it wasn't for men,
Skiz
though,
Tech, thank you for the gifted 100 subs.
No, it's not. The reason that it's that way is because men are overwhelmingly physically stronger than women.
who were women's rights protecting us from, though? I'm like a general. Were they protecting women from other women, or women from, as you said, the people who hold the monopoly on brute force?
Well, they're not really protecting anybody from anything because they're an illusion. It's
But
illusory.
if you were to answer my question, the reason that women felt so strongly,
They didn't feel strongly. The suffragettes were a small portion. Most women did not want the right. When I can't even get into this, but most women did not want most of these rights. Okay, I can't get into it for TOS reasons, but most of them didn't even want them.
I'm not
What ended up
disagreeing.
happening instead was that it was a small collective of very weak men who really pushed through with a lot of money to push feminists and these feminist ideals through. But most women didn't want anything to do with it because here, let me, if you don't mind, if you'll humor me, let me read these anti-arguments. This is from a original anti-suffrage flyer.
Why were the weak
I am
men
not even a
Here's
feminist.
what it
supporting
says.
feminism?
Special privileges. Married women are not required to contribute to support of the family. Women may work, earn money, and spend it as she pleases, may own real and personal property and dispose of it or sell it without her husband's knowledge or consent. The list goes on and on and on. Wife may have millions and cut her husband off without a cent. These do not sound like
that's
women were
crazy.
treated poorly or that they weren't treated as equals. They were treated as different because they are different.
Agreed.
And so what happened instead was that men had the overwhelming burden of responsibility, and they were forced by society, the enforcement arm, which is other men, to do their duty. And women were not forced to do that. And when we see the societal role being reversed, where women are forced instead to take on roles that require duty, they don't want it. They completely reject it. Like she said, it's basically just all me, me, me. And that's why the roles are so messed up. That's why everything is so reversed. That's why everything is the opposite of what it's supposed to be.
Andrew Wilson once again delivers a perspective that challenges the mainstream narrative, not out of malice, but out of rational analysis and historical consistency. Whether you're talking about force, responsibility, or the myth of equality, Andrew Wilson forces us to confront what society has been too afraid to admit. That true balance doesn't mean pretending everyone is the same. It means respecting the differences. If more people had the intellectual honesty and backbone of Andrew Wilson, we'd probably have a lot more productive conversations. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But as always, keep it real, keep it respectful.